I want to talk about lost civilizations of giants and why I think God destroyed them. And this video is totally speculations. There is you could doubt a lot of this stuff, but I kind of been going around and picking up bits and pieces of pre-Diluvian or before the flood civilizations, and kind of patch together some theories of why there was this such a huge flood. And I think there was two. One that basically completely wiped the giants off, and then they had the slaves. Actually, I think the humans that we have now, we were slaves of the giants, or that the earlier civilizations, Anunnaki and aliens that constructed or genetically modified and made the humans, and then the humans were the slaves, and then the giants were the offsprings of these aliens and human women, and they were size-wise they were much larger, and in fact I think I am speculating that these earlier civilizations, the aliens or Martians, they didn't want these giants because it causes problem for them, and also the fact that they were larger and smarter creatures, and also they had the ability to enslave the humans that they had made for other purposes. So it was kind of like they were usurpers. They came in. There is some evidence from Old Testament that says that these aliens or these Anunnakis, they had a rule that you should not mate with human women. But a group of them, they broke and they came down and they mated with the women, and the kids were very large kids. So, well, you can kind of see this in other societies. For example, in the whites in the United States, because the beef or the food that they consume have a lot of hormones, and many of these kids, they're much larger in size. They're bigger, they're taller, and also the brain size also has become bigger, and they're smarter. And but that's not very good, because there's other kids, and well, I don't want to go into causes of militarism or violence, but this you can see it kind of in the black community, that some blacks are very large, but that's not very good for this whole society in the whole, because anyhow, the society becomes styrated, becomes like levels, and well, a lot of places, if you saw some movie like Gifted, that the kids that are extremely bright, they don't get along with the rest of the community, and then there's always this struggle. But something like that happened in the ancient world, and these giants, they made their own civilization, which was a worldwide civilization. And in the Quran, it kind of goes like this. It talks about empire building. It says, look in the earth and see the vestiges of these other civilizations. They were bigger and they were more successful, and this is what happened with them. They perished. God destroyed them. And I went through these ideas in another video that was called When Elohim Gets Bored. So there is some characteristics of civilizations that God will destroy those civilizations, and by God, I do mean His spirit. That however you want to perceive Him, as a transdimensional being, or as an ancient snake or alien, but this God, he cares about the moral. There is a purpose. This place is a simulation, and sometimes he or she will destroy the whole simulation because it's not going the way she wants. It's doing the stuff that she doesn't want. Well, if you watch that movie or that series, Star Trek Next Generation, so for example, Captain Picard goes into the simulator, and sometimes the flow of simulation, that what it is doing, it is not what he wants to see. It's doing its own thing, and the Picard had a choice that hey, I want to stop this simulation. I'm not happy with it. So there is some characteristics of that the precursors when a civilization is going to come to an end, or God will destroy the civilization. And I want to also talk about, it doesn't have to happen in a flood. For example, in Quran it goes like this: God can make from your own offsprings a better people than you, which means that well, each generation they redefine reality, they redefine culture, their values change. They're not. We don't think and dress and live like in the 40s. We live like right now. So our values will redefine with the new generation. This is what God meant. And then those precursors are like this. Well, there's another verse in Quran. God says that to His angels that I want to make human again. I want to create someone in my own image. And then the angels protested. They said that, do you want to create another race that will shed blood on the earth? Which means that warfare, endless warfare or militarism, this is one of the characteristics of an empire that's built on conquest, built on shedding blood. This is a defining characteristics of civilizations that will perish, or God will destroy them, or will come to an end. Well, we have had many examples. The Nazi Germany, or well, the Japanese nation. It was also very violent and attacked China, other countries, and it came to an end violently too. This is one characteristics. Well, I was watching this YouTube video. It's called 3,000 Photos from a Lost World. I think these photos are from places that they're from Antediluvian period, which means at least 10, 12,000, maybe older. And some of the buildings and some of the maps, some of the pictures, they are very well preserved. When you look at many of these buildings, they're very well made, they're very ornate, often made with very large stones, very precision. They put together in very precise form and also extremely artistic. I don't think humans with the amount of brain size that we have could make such a building. I was watching one of the buildings. It looked like inside of a cathedral, but it was like huge, and there were so many artistic columns, and there were other buildings that it was like Roman statues. I don't think the Romans made those statues. I think that somebody else did, and if a human tried to make out of a stone, a solid stone, a building like that, and carve out all these very ornate, very realistic uh, figures, would probably have very hard time. I don't think that the humans made many of these buildings. Well, you should go and look at this YouTube, 3,000 photos from a lost world. And the maps of uh, the world are extremely close or realistic. It shows Africa. These maps, they didn't come from humans. Somebody else made them. And when you look at many of these buildings, you see that there are these two, well, in Iran, in Pazargad, these two large lions are in Pazargad. And or in many of the buildings, you see two very tall columns. There are two statues everywhere, or two sphinx. There's usually when you see one, there's another one. There are like two lions or two sphinx. Well, if you study the Roman civilization in the beginning, it was the Roman civilizations were not really the builders of these. They came like the Mayans later on, like 4,000-5,000 years ago, or 3,000-4,000, and their government was kind of built around these two emperors. There weren't just one Roman emperor in the beginning. There was just two, and later on, this form of government became corrupted, and then they had just one dictator. But if you study the religions that have been left from those times, I'm trying to remember the name. They were based on two rulers, two gay rulers, two guys that were married together, but they were governing the. So this is their form of government. I think it went back before Antediluvian, before the flood. So usually, okay, if you study the humans, usually when there is extreme trauma, or when a kid gets raped when he's a kid, like 4, 5, or 6, then this inner God or inner self, it awakens, because the physical body is getting damaged or ruined to such an extent that the divinity will come in, try to protect it in some way. Well, many old kingdoms, you see this practice. For example, Philip of Macedonia, or he was the father of Alexander. He actually himself, he raped his son, which is Alexander the Great. So what this happened, it usually when in the old world, when a kid, they had cut off their balls, or they had gotten raped, they would become a vicious murderer or a vicious killer. In the case of the emperor, or he would be the new emperor, because he would be so so violent, so the smarts that had come out, the self-preservation, it become to such an extent that it would overwhelm. In fact, I think Alexander killed Philip, and he was the new emperor or new king. So I think this practice was going on much earlier. Was going on in previous civilizations or antediluvian civilizations, and well, if you study Caligula, you see that he was a lover of the other king or emperor, and then he I don't know what he did to him, so he was the new one. But I think this went on, homosexuality and emperor, they were hand in hand because they were vicious killers, and this was the form of government. And I think that all these two lions you see everywhere, or two columns, or two emperors at the Roman time, they refer to this practice of very vicious fighters that dominate society or dominant government. So when in Quran, I think in the Bible, Old Testament, read this, when God wanted to create new humans, then the angels were protesting. I think that they were protesting because first, in the older civilizations, all they did was fight wars, and they were dominated by homosexuals and pedophiles, which is similar to our civilization or Western civilization right now. I don't think everywhere it's like this, but anytime you see that fags or pedophiles, they are in different parts of the government, or they are in the top of the institutions, this is a very telling sign that this civilization is coming to an end, it has come to an end, but the people, they don't know, hey, this thing is crap, or God is creating a new generation which is totally unlike the old one. Then the other one would be just injustice. And I think that this whole thing it also goes back to new quantum physics theories about that the universe is really a simulation, and there are divine forces that they want to see this simulation go in a certain way, and these older civilizations, they weren't doing what God wants them to do, or these moral values, even though they look to be an impediment in personal life, for some people, they mean something to whoever, or to the force that created this whole scenario, and when a place deviates extensively from it, this is actually a telling sign. Then looking at I was looking at one of the photos, and it showed a professor was standing in a museum in front of this huge skull. Like, you should go see the 3,000 photos from A Lost World. You see that the size of the skull, that from top to the bottom, was as much as the entire height of the professor. So if you say that the size of the professor was 5'8" or 5'9", well, that's the entire size of the skull. So, but I also want to note that when people have very large skulls, or they have very high IQs, there are some things that the brain can do that ordinary people kind of get a clue of it once in a while, but it doesn't really register with them. One of the things that I noticed, and my family is Azeris. Azeris have very big heads. Is this kind of very calm and very serene, because the brain is so large it can figure out many of the problems beforehand and resolve them. So they have like there is ambiance and well, looking at the buildings, uh, you can just right from the architecture see that the humans could not have made this building. It's the simplest one is Machu Picchu, and just the size of the stones, how they were put together. They're huge blocks. You need to have very big hands. Somebody else made those things, and also the level of ornate constructions and these clues that they had electronics. I saw one of the pictures. A woman was holding something which looked like a mirror in her hand, like this, and was looking at it, just like you would have you know a very sophisticated cell phone, and you're looking at it and it has everything. It was telling you this is what you have to do. I think that device was something like that. All the maps, such accurate maps, you really need some kind of aerial vehicle to go up and look at this, or if there was a satellite back then. I don't know. I would look into the junk that circulates the Earth and see maybe some of these really older satellites have remained. I don't know. But there is all these anomalies on Mars. There's so many. I just it's beyond me to just go over them right now. But one of the things that they all have in common is that when you look at the anomalies in Mars, you see a lot of pyramids or pyramid shapes. Same goes with the moon. So this would have been a worldwide civilization, not just on the planet Earth, but just like the New Old Testament says, it was something that was in the solar system, something like that. And some of the other accounts you read, they talk about that between all the gods, that the snake was the only one that had compassion for humans. I don't think that we humans are very peaceful or loving kind of creatures. I think that any kind of peace or spirituality that might be coming in, it probably comes in from some type of being or trans-dimensional creature that's not really originally human, but kind of humans kind of commune with it. Well, I had a communion, and the feeling when you have one is like that spirit is coming into a very old temple, like your body being a very old temple, like somebody else made, and then the spirit just visiting the same old place, same old. But you should really have one, and then you'll see that it's you are not like that. You're not. Humans are not like that. Humans are much more violent, much more given to doing things that are destructive. So I think what happened is that this civilization grew more homosexual, more violent, more militaristic, and it was all that was going on, and it became difficult, or there were very few people that this trans-dimensional being that was really the owner of this place could commune with. Well, actually, in the Old Testament, it says that God will not destroy a town or a city if there is even one person there that worships God. So the requirement was so minimal, was so like if this owner of this simulation went into a place and there was just one person between a million that he or she could commune with, then that place would be spared. Well, I don't blame you if you think that I'm kind of nuts and these ideas are very strange. I really, I'm not trying to like prove it or become popular with these theories. It's just a lot of it is speculations. But kind of bear with me, you know. Uh, I have been looking at a lot of these older stuff, and it kind of form a theory, and I'm used to doing this because a lot of stuff that happens psychically, they're very strange too, and you just make theories about it and hope for the best. Thank you very much for being in my YouTube channel. Please subscribe, leave a comment, don't be shy, and you have a nice one.